So, yeah, we're very excited to have you all here and to be representing the Ladies Quintessential Quintet. And we are sponsored by the Collaborative Musicians Project. Um, and I'll tell you a little bit about the Collaborative Musicians Project. The Collaborative Musicians Project is a local nonprofit organization to Seattle. It's an organization founded to support collaborative musicians of all ages. One of the most significant ways the project does this is by providing sponsorship for professional chamber music ensembles such as ours. This gives us the freedom to do any number of projects that further the development of collaborative music, such as exploring and recording new music and possibly even commissioning new original work. As a nonprofit organization, they rely on donations to help sponsor us. And to make it easy for donors, they are currently partnered with a live music project um, running a fund drive called Dots, and where that you can support one person or a whole ensemble or other facets of the campaign. We are super excited to have you here. We know there are members of the Collaborative Musicians Project present, and we welcome them. And we will move forward with our program, and we look forward to interacting with you.
Everybody
Thank
say
you
hello
so
to
much.
Sonja.
Hi, I'm so glad everybody's here. It's fun to see everybody who's coming on. Thank you for joining us. I just wanted to introduce you quickly to who you see on screen with you here. We have Elizabeth Crawford, who is the bassoon professor at BYU, Idaho. So she's in Rexburg. We have myself, I'm Sonja Reynolds, and I'm a horn player, and I'm based in Utah. And we have Rose Johnson. She is our flautist. She's one of our Seattle-based musicians, as is Lori Shepard. She's our clarinetist, also in the Seattle area. We've got with us also Nicole Fulmer, and she is our oboist. She's also based in Utah. We have two of our composers with us. We are thrilled that they could join us. We've got Alyssa Morris. Alyssa is the oboist, the principal oboist in the Topeka Symphony Orchestra, and she's the oboe professor at Kansas State University. And we are going to be premiering her recommission of Melting Pot, which you'll hear in a minute. And we also have with us Catherine Neville, and she is from Long Island. She's a clarinetist, and we will be, you'll hear part of her work that we are in mid-project on right now. And that is a fabulous piece, and we are just really enjoying playing that, and that's called Filaments.
Great. Thanks so much, Sonja. I'm going to continue really quick and just talk about the Ladies Quintessential Quintet, which is part of a larger group called the Ladies Reading Society. We are a gathering place for women musicians. It has been just kind of a creative space. It began with Lori and Nicole and I about 10 years ago with our little trio, and it's expanded over the years. We'll talk a little bit more about future projects, but it's expanded into a quartet with a pianist, Allison Vest, and of course the Ladies Quintessential Quintet. And we feature a few different things throughout the year, but the big ones are the Trio de Bois, the Ladies Quintessential Quintet. There's actually a ladies bassoon band, and we just get together and play music at the highest level we can and continue to network among women musicians.
We would like to take a moment to give some special thanks to Collaborative Musicians Project for sponsoring this. Not only are they hosting this on their YouTube page, but originally they were supposed to sponsor us for our in-person residency in Seattle. Well, also thanks to my husband Ryan for learning how and running the live stream. It's been a whirlwind for all of us, and we'll talk more about our process on this live stream later. And also for our families who have put up with the same craziness that happens every time the five of us get together. It's work really, really, really hard on getting all of our creative expression out in 1 week. And then we'll be back to you shortly, families. And thank you so much for putting up with it. I appreciate it. And Nicole's looking for her unmute button.
Yep, sorry. So we're going to start with listening to a piece by Amy Beach. It's called Pastoral, and we'll move on from there. We're going to also, after some more introduction and talking, we will listen to Alyssa's piece, The Melting Pot. And after that, we will introduce you to just a part of Catherine Neville's piece called Filaments. So for now, let's go on to Amy Beach's video. We're going to actually go to Lori to explain why we did this piece, and then we will move from Lori to Rose.
We were looking for another piece to kind of work on because we decided that our schedule during the residency, we knew we were going to do Melting Pot, but we had planned another piece that was quite a bit longer. And as we started into the week and found out that the technical demands of putting video and recording and re-recording and doing all of the things that you have to do to record, that we probably needed to scale down the scope just a little bit. And so we were looking for other works by female composers. And I felt that it was important for us to go back to one of the first women that I knew about back in the Victorian era, who had composed on a large scale. And I'm just really attached to Amy Beach and the Amy Beach Symphony. So I wanted to introduce the quintet to our quintet. And I'm really glad that we did. We do have a mission in this particular group, the Ladies Quintessential Quintet, to try and foster performance by female musicians, by women musicians, to try and play as much music by female composers as we can, and to commission new works by female composers and do collaborations just in general. It's not like we don't have opportunities as women to play music, but there's a special sense and a bond that we have when we're working together that is very important to us, and it's very close to my heart. So yes, I think we can move on. Let's get to more music.
So Rose, why don't you introduce us to co-music?
So yeah, Collaborative Musicians Project, as I mentioned before, is sponsoring us. And what they do for us is they allow us to come in on a residency, like we were planning for Seattle, where we would come in and we would do coaching of children, in schools, and we would do some in-home concerts and some other performances and outreach and that kind of thing. And, as frustrating as that was, Collaborative Musicians Project has been very gracious to continue their support and encourage this project. And we are greatly appreciative of it. And we will continue to work with them for some time to come.
Thanks so much, Rose. Well, we have finally reached the moment we've been working for this entire week, which is to do the premiere of Alyssa Morris's fabulous piece for wind quintet, Melting Pot. And I just want to explain how we're going to do this, because we have literally a woman here from every single time zone, and there's delays and we have to mute and unmute. I'm just going to explain how we'll do this. Alyssa's going to say a few words about the piece. Then we'll listen to the first movement. I'll talk a little bit about the audio video editing process. We'll watch the second movement. Lori will share a little bit about her experience. We'll watch the third movement, and then we'll hear a few things from Nicole, or actually, sorry, from Rose about editing that video. So I just also want to say I have had the great fortune of knowing Alyssa as a composer and an oboist for a number of years. She is just absolutely one of my favorite composers. She is an emblem to me of a strong woman, musician, as a leader, a mother, a wife, an educator, and a performer. And every time I play her music, it fills me with joy, even though I'm crying. These are happy tears. So we're really grateful that we got to do this collaboration. It's been such an incredible week exploring this piece through technology and remote abilities. And so, Alyssa, I'm going to stop bubbling so you can say a few words about the piece.
Well, Elizabeth, I want to thank you and thank all of you for your kind words and for the heart that you have put into this project. It's been such a meaningful experience for me to witness the heart that you have come together with and collaborated with to create so much beautiful music, and to allow me to be a part of it has been just a real joy for me. So thank you. This piece originally was commissioned by Lori and her group, and it was originally conceptualized for doubling musicians, and which is kind of where the title Melting Pot came from, because it was she mentioned, there was some wording, Lori, that you said about how you had kind of this collective, you were all coming together with these different strengths, and some were doublers on a variety of different instruments, and it was like kind of a melting pot of a variety of different people coming together with their different strengths in this group. And so I think that as I remember, the bassoon part had some saxophone in it, and there were doubling bass clarinet parts, and I remember having so much fun with the challenge of trying to write for doubling instruments and trying to coordinate when they would switch, and probably being optimistic about how fast the switches would have to take. Oh man, I remember thinking that's only 8 bars, and a bar only lasts about this long, and but they're amazing, they'll be fine. But I did think when I was writing it that I would like to be able to revisit it and write it as a traditional woodwind quintet. So when you all came forward with the opportunity to write it for quintet, I was just overjoyed at the opportunity to be able to revisit for quintet, and for such 5 wonderful people, and I just love what you have done with it. So Melting Pot is just sort of a synthesis of different flavors, because we as different musicians come together as a whole with all of our different flavors and all of our different personalities and all of our different strengths to create something collectively that is better than what it would be just individually. We come together and synthesize, and the synergy creates something that is what is that? There's probably some theory gestalt or something like that. That the sum of all parts is better than each individual. And so we have a bubbly flavor for the first movement, and a sweet flavor in the second movement, and the third movement is crunchy. And but what I love most is all of the flavors that each of the five of you have brought to it. So thank you so much.
Yay. It's awkward to see us performing and we're not really hearing anything. So just a few words about this. There's a lot of recording and re-recording that has to happen to make all this happen, with tempo changes and all manner of things. But something that we realized in doing this is that when we're together, it's very easier as chamber musicians to use our bodies to cue and to line things up. And so really the lion's burden this week was in editing, finding all those things that didn't quite line up, even with the click tracks that were created by Lori and Rose, to get things to synthesize so beautifully. But it was really amazing. I have to share the moment I got to do the audio editing for the entire Alyssa Morris piece. And I was just sitting here in my home office when everything lined up and I heard it together, and just chills and emotions swept over me because it was so beautiful, and it still managed to capture what we do so well together. And I Marco Polo'd my ladies, and I was crying on the Marco Polo, and I said, it just sounds amazing. So we're going to cruise right ahead into the next movement.
Sweet.
anything on this project before last Sunday. We came into this thinking, how are we going to live stream this? I don't even know what a live streaming platform is for real. How are we going to edit this? I don't know. How are we going to get the tracks back and forth to each other? Going through that process with these ladies has been amazing. I don't know if I could do it with any other group. With this little, there was, you know, with such, there were none of the bad feelings. It was just all the good feelings.
And I think it's important to point out, Lori, that literally all of us were just recording and filming at home. So you see children and dogs and husbands, and it was all a homegrown effort that we had to bring together using technology. And it, you know, it was long days, very long days.
And we had a definite limit on how long we had to spend. We had literally one section of one day for final takes often, and we'd only done one scratch track where we'd only had one session to even figure out how we all fit together. There weren't a lot of rehearsals. We lived so far away that we usually do these residencies where we rehearse, and then we do our rehearsals were recording scratch tracks and then meeting together. So it's just
lots of meeting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But fun.
Yeah.
But fun.
Let's hear the third movement, and we'll roll this conversation on the whole process right into that. So. So awesome. So fun. Well done, Rose. Well done.
Thank you.
Yes,
You ladies
thank you.
too. Wow. Yeah, what a process this has been. Everything, it has been quite miraculous that technology has been in our favor as much as it has been, because we could not have accomplished what we've accomplished this week in 5.5 days, roughly, and many nights. many nights. Some of us got more sleep than others.
Yeah. And I would say, I think
but it's been a party. It's been fun.
it's amazing the luxury we've realized that when you do come together as chamber musicians, how kind of seamless it is, because you just work on something when it doesn't work. When you don't have that luxury and you have to wait for someone else to post a new video or a new audio, it's incredible, just the patience. And when you do finally make a recording, you're like, this better, I have to do this perfectly because we can't waste any more time on this, you know? It's a totally different process.
Yes, and the learning curve, it was enormous learning curve, but we learned and we climbed, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah. So we'd love to kind of hopefully have someone ask some questions or kind of talk about our process. I'm going to turn this over to Lori and Rose in particular, and Nicole is moderating the YouTube chat. So if you have questions, go ahead and ask them. But otherwise, I'd love for Lori and Nicole to, Lori and Rose to talk about where this began technologically.
It began with Rose and I experimenting. Oh my goodness, was that only 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Experimenting 2 weeks ago with recording just duets between the two of us at distance, going back and forth, and we'd say, okay, let's put up our phone and I'll turn on a metronome and just play to the phone, and then I'll send it to you. And we tried that, and because technology, she has an iPhone with variable frame rate for the picture and I do not. I have a Samsung, and it stayed. So we would exchange, and we'd be like, why are you deviating from the metronome? And I'm like, I'm not. Why are you? It's just this whole
or Bluetooth headphones. The Bluetooth headphones, we did that.
Hint, if you are going to record with your phone, hardwired headphones are essential.
Yes.
All kinds of delays are just introduced. Man, and so anyway, we quickly figured out that we needed to have a click track. But with, as you just heard on the 3 songs with Crunchy, just a metronome was not going to do it. We didn't want to compromise the music.
Yeah, we started with verbal metronoming and then turning it off when we'd have a slowdown or speeding up, and then turning it back on and splicing things together.
And I'm cheap, so I have Audacity as my, what's it called? Is it a DAW? My audio editor, and I figured out how to make that do what I needed to do to be able to do Crunchy, which has the mix meter, and just make a click track on that was adjustable. That was the first step, and actually the click tracks for Sweet and Bubbly came later, as we learned how to use the technology better. Just I can't believe how much we've done in what seems like a year. That's been 5 days.
Yes.
So, what about the video for you? Video editing for you, Rose?
Well, the video editing, it's been interesting because I had 2 different software programs. I had an AVS program, and I had Adobe Premiere Pro, which is a huge learning curve in learning. And I have used it, but it had been a long time. It's something you forget. And Lori is using Shotcuts. So we're using all different programs.
Yeah.
And at the same time, that didn't matter as much, because as long as we produced an outgoing file, I would record one and she would record that. We were working on 2 projects at the same time. She would do one and I'd do the other click track, and then we'd swap. So that way we were making, double the time.
Yeah. And as far as different software, I think I recorded in Audacity. Nicole?
I recorded in Logic Pro X.
Right. And I think Sonja was...
I just record everything natively in BandLab.
And Elizabeth, you did it on your Zoom, is that right?
No, I did it on Adobe Audition.
Adobe Audition. And I don't know what Rose used.
Yeah.
I was converted to Audacity.
Okay. Because the dropping in is really nice, isn't it? So, yeah, just as long as we made sure that we made sure that we exported to WAV files so that we had things that were similar and of high quality and that would hopefully be lossless in the quality. And we went from there. And then as far as the process for, okay, typical day in the life of our residency, who wants to address that?
I will. So basically, there are 2 Zoom meetings a day. There's one at 2:30, or sorry, one at 2 and one at 9:30. And these are very long meetings because we have to review all the recordings and whatever videos were ready, but also going through the score. So we started the night before. So the night before we had to-do lists of things that had to be done by the 2 o'clock meeting. And that was various takes and retakes, scratches and final cuts, and then uploading into and out of BandLab, which we discovered has some strange quirks as well, which I won't even get into. And then we'd have a very long, usually about an hour and a half meeting in the middle of the day. And then new things were established, lots of score study, a lot of listening over Zoom. And then new to-do lists were issued. Those things all had to be done. And then we came back together for another long meeting in the evening. And I also want to say, this is a pandemic. I mean, Sonja is at home with 10 kids. Nicole, 3. I have a teenager. Rose has a teenager. Like, this is all happening along with just normal life in a pandemic, whatever that means.
And can I interject one thing? I noticed a question that it's important, I think, to understand. This isn't music that we had rehearsed together in person previously and started to record. This is music that we saw and got click tracks to, and it's going to a recording session where they're like, here's some music hot off the press, here's a click track, record it. It was like that, only without the benefit of hearing the other parts as we do it. So I mean, there was a lot of groundwork. I mean, it was just learning stuff from the ground up the whole way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that was the hardest part, was trying to lay down that first scratch track without knowing exactly, you know, you become completely aware of how much you depend on the other musicians around you for where is pitch center through this, and you know, how are we going to approach that accelerando, and are we going to push here, are we going to pull back? And you would find that out when you would hear the scratch track of everybody else, and then it was like, oh, the first scratch tracks, like the very first ones, they're not something I want to listen to again.
And there's a lot of humility involved in redoing something that you spent hours working on and just saying, okay, just put it away and we start over again.
Yeah, and that's true. And some of the times Lori and Rose had to redo the click tracks. I saw Jessica asked about talking about timing. We had those conversations about timing, and then they had to go in and redo the click tracks to adjust for, you know, more retardando or a faster tempo. So then once that was done, then everybody has to re-record. I mean, it's just, this has been an crazy, incredible week.
Well, and somebody asked how we talked about how to make those changes too. One of the things that we did in our Zoom videos was we shared the screen within Zoom and watched it happen on BandLab and listened to it together so we could pause and discuss and play and pause and discuss and play and things like that. And so that's how we coordinated. We would do all of the tracks first and then go back and listen as a group.
Yeah. Yeah, just a totally new experience. I've never done anything like this. All of us have varying levels of experience in recording studio. I probably have the least of the 5 of us, but this is nothing like I've ever experienced, even in a recording project. This was 10 times more complicated and more mental endurance, you know, like, oh my gosh, I have to do this again. And I cannot stray, you know, from what we've talked about.
Exactly.
So.
And keeping the timeline going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing too. Also just getting to a point where we had to say, we have to move on. Like we just have to move on. So
I think that this whole experience has established very firmly, in my mind at least, what we need to do to be able to produce more music as a group who resides in 3 different states, and how we can do that. And because usually it feels so much like famine and feast. We'll get together and it's the best time of the year for me. I just love it so much. And then I have to wait for like a whole nother year before we have the time to dedicate to that. But
yeah,
the idea that we're going to be able to do this a little bit more often, it's just exciting for me.
Yeah, the fact that you've created a system that was actually going to allow us to be more productive is phenomenal.
Along those lines, Lori and Rose, would you answer this question? Someone asked how we came up with this. I know we kind of briefly touched on that earlier, but that I think really ties into what you two were just talking about.
Came up with
like doing this project and doing it virtually.
I was devastated when everything started coming down about, I knew I wouldn't be able to get together with these ladies. I couldn't let that go. Yeah. I didn't want to.
And Lori,
I knew that we could do this. I knew that there was something that we could do.
Yeah.
And Rose also, she was
Yeah.
like, we have to do something. No. And
Yeah.
she just kept convincing me because I was just like getting down. And she's like, no, we're doing it. Don't worry. We're doing it.
Yeah. When we get together as ladies, Lori and I, and any of us, we are an amazing think tank.
Yeah. Yep. I'm pretty sure that, especially with the addition of Sonja, she provides so much stability in the common sense land, and also
She's a voice
in
of reason.
understanding things that I don't have in my skill set. Man, it's so refreshing every time that we add a new musician. It's wonderful.
She's everything we love about brass players and none of the things we don't like about brass players.
Say that on
Lori, should we move on to filaments and introduce Catherine and talk about what's next?
Yes, that sounds wonderful. I went to Stony Brook to the Clarinetopia in seminar in 2010. Something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And at that time I met Catherine, and I had remembered that she composed. And just when we get together and are looking for composers of music for quintet, we love to work with people that we know. And Catherine reached out last summer when we did our first concert in Utah and said, hey, I have this quintet. I'd love to play it. Or maybe I contacted you. I can't even remember.
I think I sent it to you because, you know, I'm kind of vicariously watching, and I saw this amazing quintet, and you're looking for work by women composers, and I happened to fit that bill. So I sent it to you, and you said it looked great. And then out of the blue, Lori contacted me earlier this week and said, hey, you know, you sent us this quintet a while ago. How about we play it and try to record it? And I said, oh, that sounds amazing. That would be wonderful. And so here we are.
Yes. And right now we're in the middle of the process. We have done scratch tracks, the first scratch tracks, which required, in this case, because it's a brand new work that none of us were familiar with. Melting Pot, Rose and I had played in its other form with the multi-instrumentalists, but I had never heard Catherine's until we started on it, and I'd done some research and watched the performance on YouTube, but the other ladies had never heard it before. So we did refer to the MIDI, and the first thing we did is we played scratch tracks with MIDI, and we added, I sat there with my Dr. Beat and added a click track to it. And we recorded that way. And then we passed those tracks among each other. And we figured out, okay, I think we get it. I think we get what's going on. And the benefit of working with wonderfully generous, live female composers is then I texted Catherine and said, would you please meet with us and give us some insight? And as Elizabeth put it, how did you say it?
It was like a few key sentences, and I was like, oh, okay, that all makes sense. You know, it just made it so easy. It was like, okay, get it.
Yeah. And after that, we went back and we've done a second take. Because of all the editing of everything that we've been talking about, we are not at the end of the process with this piece. We are in the beginning of the process, and we're going to take our time. I mean, just not being rushed, of course. So right now, what you're going to hear is the first section from the beginning to measure like 48 or something like that. And Catherine, would you talk a little bit about the piece in general before we hear it?
So this piece was very inspired by the music of Carl Nielsen, who is a Danish composer and wrote immense, fantastic music for winds. And as a clarinetist, I am very, very fond of his clarinet. But when he wrote wind quintets, Nielsen wrote them for his friends, and he tried to bring
Oh, hang on just a moment, Catherine. I think your feed is catching up, and I think we're good. Go ahead.
So filament, I tried to capture the individual personalities of each instrument, and obviously I would write it for imaginary people. So in my piece, our flutist is a bit uptight and stays very metronomic. The oboist is kind of in her own little world, doing her own thing, and tends to come in with these little motives that fit in with, but really aren't the same as everything else. The clarinetist is a bit of a wisecrack, and she likes to make jokes. And tends to riff on everybody. And in particular, in my work, she's mocking the flutist quite a lot. The flute will play something, a clarinet will play it back in a very sarcastic manner. It's a lot of fun. It's meant to be all in good fun. The bassoonist is our jolly general. She's showing the markings.
These markings are actually in the score. I just realized everything's backwards, but Catherine has actually put in the score for the flute, rather mechanical, and for the clarinet, mocking the flutist. It's in the score. It's wonderful.
It is. It's wonderful.
Anything to help, right? So our bassoonist is a jolly general trying to keep everybody on track, but bassoonists often have this strange sense of humor. So they, I tried to bring that in. And then the horn is extremely lyrical, as sort of the angelic voice of the wind quintet. The horn has all these lovely huge lines that carry over the whole thing. So that is where it came from. And of course, within all that, there's all sorts of fun things like canons and fugues and retrogrades and all sorts of little counterpoint things. So that's what it is. And I have to take a moment to say how grateful I am to all of these ladies for working so hard on this piece. I'm immensely grateful to you. I don't have enough words for that. I'm so excited.
I can tell that we're going to have a lot of fun with the video aspect of this project.
So the state that this is currently in is we're still in rehearsal recordings, but we want to let you hear what this is like in process. And I do have to say, after going back, after listening to the scratch tracks, and then we've done our finals and we left it for mixed down for a day, coming back to it, I'm like, okay, it's really starting to come together. This is going to be fun. So without further ado, let's listen to the first sections of Filaments.
Yay!
Fantastic.
Yay, yes. So it is clearly and definitely still a work in progress. It's, we've got a lot more tracks to polish, and we go back and forth. We discuss what we need to do next. It's just a regular process now. We've got it down to to a science. So yeah, it's going to come together and should be coming out the pipeline here shortly.
marvelous job, everyone. This is such an amazing undertaking. The difficulty of this project cannot be overstated. I just can't imagine trying to play chamber music from all different locations. I mean, the definition and the nature of chamber music is that we need to be together. It's a small group. And the communication from person to person is such an essential part of how all of this comes together. So the fact that you five decided that you were going to do this remotely is remarkable. This whole thing is a miracle of technology and your persistence and your effort. And it's deeply appreciated for me personally. And I think it's such a huge contribution to all of us going forward because you are blazing a trail here for others to follow. So I congratulate you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Catherine. Thank you so much. Nicole?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're really excited about having gone through this project is that we now know that we can do this and we can do it whenever we want to. And with us being in 3 different states, we can only get together once or twice a year. And so we're really excited about the possibilities of doing this on a more regular basis and being able to present more new music or underrepresented music, because we can prepare this kind of stuff. And then when we do come together, we can go do a live performance of it and we'll already know it. We'll be familiar with it. We'll know what we sound like with each other. And we just improve upon it instead of having to start from square one during that week. Yeah. So we're super excited about continuing to record and continuing to release stuff on YouTube. Speaking of, by the way, you should all subscribe because there will be more coming. So yeah. Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram with both Trio de Bois and Ladies Quintessential Quintet. And you should see handles for all 5 of us on Instagram if you want to follow us individually.
Ryan is working on those handles, so
perfect.
Them from here on out.
So our next project, as we finish up Catherine's project, Trio de Bois is going to move on. We received a grant for a commission with Cy Brandon. That'll be coming out probably next month. And then Lori?
In September, we are hoping for the best because we do have a residency currently scheduled in talks with the Capulan Volcano National Monument as an astronomy festival, and we are scheduled to go and play for that, and I'm thrilled about that. While we're there, we'll also be working with the Mandela Center, or hoping to, and this is a retreat outside of Raton, New Mexico, that another one of the fantastic female musicians that many of us are associated with, Miss Kelly Ricks, reached out. Actually, we found out about that festival and just this opportunity because Kelly had posted on her personal Facebook page at some point that hey, I saw her talking about bringing in a brass quintet, and I'm like, hey, we should bring our woodwind quintet. She's like, that's a great idea, let's get started. So shout out to Kelly, because she's another one of those wonderful human being female artists that I just adore. Are those other ones that I'm supposed to talk about?
Yep.
I think it is. Okay, Sonja, you're up.
The Ladies Quintessential Quintet is available for residencies, performances. If you're interested in hiring us, please contact us through our website or the Collaborative Musicians Project. They can also contact us. Also, a call for sponsors. We're always looking for sponsors to help us get these projects done and to do our performances. Again, you can just contact us through any of our many social media presences. We'd be happy to help.
So thank you all so much for being with us, especially Alyssa Morris and Catherine Neville. We are literally in every time zone. This has been amazing.
We can applaud. Yes.
Thanks for being so patient with the technology for those who are watching, and thanks for supporting. Find us on social media. We're so grateful to everyone for the hard work in putting this together. Have a great night.
And if you'd like to watch it again, it'll be available on Co-Music Pro and on Ladies Reading Society YouTube channels.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, you can end it. Is it done?